I know.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:33. In accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NORCAM and may be recorded by other local media. If we could all stand for the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go on to our next business, we would like to take this moment to congratulate Mr. O'Leary for 50 years of public service. I mean, to even say that is just amazing to me. His family members are here. We have some coffee, refreshments in the back, and some lovely pictures displayed. I'd just like to say, you know, when I read the transcript, I knew Mr. O'Leary had talked about it with us, that he had been doing this for 50 years, but when I read it and all that he has accomplished, and to think that at 19 years old, that he was the town moderator, I mean, that's a pretty huge job to conduct a town meeting. At the age of 19, to have that kind of self-confidence, that just floored me. So all due respect to you, Mr. O'Leary, and all of the time, all of the effort that you've put in all these years. I mean, I've already thought about quitting several times, and I'm only on my second term, so.
Steve probably has to.
It's pretty amazing. I know that we have brought up in the past getting a stipend, being paid a small amount for doing this kind of service, and Mr. O'Leary's response when I brought that up was, well, only if I can get back pay.
Yeah, retroactive, yeah.
Yeah, so we all decided to chip in and give you that. So this is for your time
So I
and your back
open it
pay.
Divided by 50 is $2,000.
We also have,
Because I'm willing to share all this with my colleagues.
well, I figured you would.
Oh, funny. Wow. This is funny. This is excellent.
So for the people that are here, we're going to ask that you sign this. I'll open this up later. You can sign it. We'll put it right now. But yeah, but it's basically just a picture. And thanks to Maureen Doherty for giving us the pictures. So
Yeah.
we've been scrambling
before and after
to get this. This is a picture of Steve when he was 19 years old, when it was his first time doing moderation. And at that time, and I still probably think it's a record, he was the youngest elected official in all of Massachusetts for doing what he was doing. And you told me a story about a very large fellow who came up to you and challenged you. You followed the rules, and the fellow told you afterwards, you did a good job, and never going to bother you again. So at 19, that was just exceptional.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this was Steve just at the town meeting doing what he always does, which is he explains the hard things in very simple terms for people to understand. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's been a great statesman for our town, and we've been blessed. So it says, thank you for 50 years of public service to a very grateful community.
And Mrs. McCoy,
Definitely. I think we always look to you, Steve, for giving us the background, the history. You must have seen, I can't imagine all of the things that you've seen over the course of time and how the community has changed. I can always count on you when someone comes up here, and then I'll say to you after, who is so-and-so? You can tell me all about them, their family, where they were from, what they were all about, things of that nature that make it, that those are the bits and pieces of the fabric of the community that are so important to know, and for us to know as we do this job. It's just been tremendous to have you here as a resource, as a mentor, as a public servant who's been dedicated for that length of time. In the current culture, that type of dedication is sometimes dismissed or downplayed or denigrated, actually. And that's from people that don't participate in the process. They don't stand up and man a post. And you've done that literally for 5 decades, and that's just incredible. That's just incredible spirit, community dedication. We definitely don't always agree on a lot of things, and we battle it out, and we have public disagreement, but I respect your commitment to this board, to this community, to this town, and I know you eat, sleep, and breathe North Reading. And for me, as a colleague on the board this time, that's just been tremendous for me to serve with you. I'm glad I'm here to celebrate this occasion with you too. I'm proud to be your colleague on this board, and I'm proud that you have been dedicated in your service to the town for this long. I just congratulate you. I thank you. And I, again, appreciate all that you bring, not just to the town, but to us individually and personally. So I thank you, and I have to thank your beautiful wife and children, because you share him with us too. And everybody that's here that mans a post around here, we know that takes from you. And we appreciate you too for letting your dad and letting your husband serve for this length of time that he has. We appreciate you too, so thank you all. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Follow that one up, Mr. Stewart.
Oh, I can. So let's see. Okay, so you did this a while before I was even born. And that's impressive, but I will say in my short time in public service, the fact that you stuck around this long, seeing how sometimes, no matter how many hours you put in, maybe those are not appreciated. It is, there's really no description. I think we can try. I can try to come up with all these superlatives that, my colleagues already gave. But I appreciate that, again, with some things we have not seen eye to eye, but it's the wealth of knowledge. I like to say that you can only read so much, but somebody can bring you up to speed and give you a decade worth of information in a very short period of time. And that's what Mr. O'Leary was able to done for me. Also, he puts a lot of things apart and what he values. And time and commitment is something he does. And I saw it during my last election where the main reason, my understanding is that he gave me his support was because he valued the time I was putting into it, because he had been there having a young family. And that showed me everything I needed to know, because it caught me by surprise. It really did. And I think that also 50 years of doing this set you up nicely to ignore social media and all the great things and wonders that brings. But I think that, he helped me most because I came from a world where logic is everything, and now I'm in a world where logic sometimes takes a back seat, for better or for worse. And I think his best advice was always, you can't take it personal, because it is what it is. And I think that developing that, and I think that's, it takes a lot. So, again, to me, having somebody like you around, it's necessary if you want to function at an efficient and high level, because somebody's going to have the info. So I hope that if you ever do give it up, because, for whether you want to say it's all, I'm done, or she wants to say you're done with
Which
somebody.
has happened before.
I hope that, we can always count on that that institutional knowledge. That's really what it is, and you can't replicate it. It's impossible. So again, not to be long-winded, but it's I mean, there's a couple of situations pretty much it would have been a lot harder for me to pull off if I wasn't able to pick your brain. So, I thank you for that. And I also thank your family for letting you do this long, because that's going to be the second thing I ask you of how to pull that one off. But that's a slightly longer discussion. So, but thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point out two things that the town probably isn't very much aware of that has brought real value to our town that I've experienced over my last 12 years knowing Steve. One is that when we think about where we're getting water from Andover right now, historically that wasn't the case. We were going to be getting it from MWRA, and that came with its own risk in doing that. And Steve and Bob Masori pursued very aggressively to work with Andover to have them be the supplier of our water. And there was many meetings I sat in here where I heard a lot of people saying, just give it up, Andover's never going to work with us, just give it up, just give it up. And Steve persisted and stayed involved with pursuing Andover. And not only did he get an agreement from Andover that helped us with a potential sewer project as well, but also all the money that we had invested into MWRA, he got Andover to pick up that tab, so that he got us agreement. And then if you compare the MWR rates versus what the Andover rates are, it's millions and millions of dollars for the next 100 years at least that the town is benefiting from, that Steve and Bob Merceri put together in a very strategic way. Because I've asked details about this, and Steve has told me the stories. And it was really advanced strategic work that made that all happen. And Steve was a very significant reason why that happened. And one last story, again, real true value to the town. I was serving on the EDC when the Lowell Properties, Pulte Properties, was being brought up for an RFP, and the EDC was pretty committed to offering that property as commercial only, not residential. I didn't share that opinion. So they had an open meeting at the library, public meeting. Steve was there. I think Don Kelleher was there. I was there. The EDC said, we're thinking commercial. And our best offer at that time was $2.5 million with potentially $300,000 of new taxes. I sheepishly raised my hand and said, I think we should open up to residential as well. And as soon as I said that, Steve in the back started going on about how it should be opened up for best use. And what went from a which eventually the EDC agreed with, and what was $2.5 million turned into $30 million, which netted the town $21 million. And what would have been a $200,000 increase to our property taxes ended up to be $3.5 million. That's happened because he made the argument that I couldn't make. And otherwise, it never would have happened. So those are two really good examples. I know there's many more examples I'm not aware of, but those are two really good examples that I know that without Steve sitting there and doing what he did, we would have not have had those things work out for our town. So I consider Steve my mentor, my friend, and I hope you serve for another 10, 20, 30 years. I'm planning to hang in as long as you plan to hang in, because I enjoy your information. I always like talking to you, and it's always been a great time being with you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to the family very much. So, thanks.
Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief, but when you come into my position as town administrator, you're trying to play a whole lot of catch-up over a short amount of time. And in the summer of 2014, that was what I was charged with doing. And I think I put a really good effort into it, but it was matched with the feedback I got from Mr. Maseri, from yourself, from Mike Murphy, who was the acting town administrator. And it's continued to be available, a resource for someone in my shoes to be able to ask about the history, to go back as far as the 1970s and to know the context. It's candidly makes my job so much more effective and efficient. And you've also been nothing but supportive of me and my family and the demands that the job brings as well, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that as well. But, the community is better off for your service, and I just want to say thank you.
Good.
There's no question that you're valuable. There's no question. And when you agree with me, I love having you speak here. When you don't, it's the worst. So before you speak, I'd just like to open it up to the audience, your family. If anyone out there would like to say something, please do.
Steve, congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your time and your service.
Happy gave a rah-rah.
Don
gave thumbs up.
Happy.
Susan says, we're done with this, move on.
Let me spare them. All right?
Sure. The floor is yours.
The floor is mine, okay. And you know that's a bad thing. You know that's a bad thing. I mean, you've already been subjected to this.
That's why we have coffee,
Yeah.
so we can stay around.
That's very good.
No, but it's funny, so 50 years ago, this is what occurred. But really about 52 years ago, I was assigned the task by a high school teacher to attend town meeting, as part of a U.S. government class. His name was John Oman. He became a good, fast friend. Anyway, he got to go to town meeting, and that was class assignment, basically. So I went to town meeting, and I was appalled at how it was being run, how it was being managed, how people weren't being heard, how they were being shut off. And I went home and I started jibber-jabbering at the kitchen table, because my father had been school committee for years, housing authority for years, my mother was actively involved, so there was plenty of conversation around the dinner table. But went back after the meeting, and I was just off the wall. So my father, in his usual way, which is very calm and kind of quiet, but he would say, well, you have an awful lot to say here, it's some pretty strong opinions. I said, yeah, this is terrible. He says, so what are you going to do about it? I said, what? So what are you going to do about it? I said, I'm going to run against that guy. And that was kind of the impetus. I mean, I was always involved in student government, that sort of thing, but I was absolutely appalled. So what he just said, all right, you can complain all you want, you can be critical all you want, but what are you going to do about it? So off we went. I lost. My first election, by the way, I lost, 1972. I lost. First person I voted for, never being able to vote, couldn't vote for myself. It was a losing cause. But the night I lost, I announced I was going to run again against the guy. And I respect it. I say the guy, he's very respectable member of the community, and I just didn't agree with the way he ran things. And the following year, I won. And I was 19 years old, and it was quite a feat, I guess. I didn't think much of it at the time, other than get something to take care of, something to do. But so 50 years ago, if you look at the picture, I had no gray hair, and no glasses, and no mustache. Right now, tonight, I got some stuff going on here with some pre-cancerous stuff, so I look like then I probably had a little acne. And then, at 50 years and about 50 pounds. So other than that, not much has changed. We didn't have text messaging, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the computers, we didn't have all this other stuff. And at the time, in 1973, we had almost 2,000 people participating in an election. A voter registration was half of what it is today. Participation rates were 33, 35%, 40% in town elections. We're lucky if we cracked 10% today. So have we seen some things change here? We've seen a lot of changes, physical changes, structural changes, infrastructure changes over the years. But what we've seen too is a lack of participation and sense of community to the point where you go to town meeting, you participate in the elections, and you respectfully disagree with one another and come to some conclusions on things. So there's been a significant change. And I've been fortunate that for all these years, people have been very supportive of me. I've had a tremendous amount of success, and I'd like to think it's because I listen to them. I mean, I may not agree with everybody, and I don't agree with people on some things, but at least I tell them what I think, why, and hopefully they respect me for it. And over the years, I've been rewarded significantly. But to all of your point, earlier, none of this can be done. None of us can participate in these things, without the support of our family. And over the years now, over 35 years since I was first elected to the board, I've served with like 28 or 30 other people. That's significant turnover, and it takes a toll on the family. And it's funny, I look out here tonight and say, well, this is a surprise. Because for 47 of the 50 years, my wife Sue has been probably the most tolerant individual in the country, in the nation here, as far as putting up with this baloney. And again, it's not easy. We're all aware. It takes a toll sometimes when you're sitting in the Little League fields, or if the kids are in school and they're hearing about what your father did over here, or they're out in the ball fields and doing whatever they're doing, and they're taking the criticism for things that I've said. She's sitting in the stands and listening about what people are saying and barking about me, and reads the letter to the editors. They're not so complimentary, and comments that are made, and phone calls that are made to the house saying, the crows got in the trash and, you should come pick it up, whatever it is, over the years. But for 47 years, Sue's been the most tolerant, supportive individual that I can ever hope for, For me, this has been my sport. I always said, when the knees go, it's not as fun as it used to be, it'll be time to move on. And every 3 years comes up, question is, you're running again. She doesn't ask because she's the one who wants to know. Whether she voted for me or not, I still don't. Because she's my biggest supporter.
You checked the
I know she voted. She's been the biggest supporter and also the biggest critic. So it's been an interesting relationship, and one which has been more one-sided than the other. For the boys, they had to grow up with this baloney. But I think what they've seen, and I hope, and I can see in them now as young men, that they see the sense of commitment that needs to be made, and how you have to be an integral part of whatever community you belong to, and contribute. And we couldn't be prouder. So for that's good. But as I said, over 30 different people that we've served with here on the board. I look at other people who have put in the years. I look at people sitting right here, Ron Kelleher, decades of service to the community. I think of people that, the Ralph Hudsons, my parents, Brad Jones's parents. People like that have put in decades worth of service and continue. But again, some of these people that have come and gone, and sometimes now forgotten, but what they've left for the community is irreplaceable. And so for this, I've been extremely grateful. I've been extremely lucky. I've had a very supportive family, and I hope that the community has benefited by it. And again, sometimes over the years, the wheels of government turn very slowly. In 1972, there was a sewer study committee. All right, 1973. 1988, when I first ran for the board, sewerage on Concord Street was part of my platform. So to my colleagues, I appreciate your service, but be persistent, be patient, just keep chipping away at it, and eventually someone comes up with a new idea that was thought about 30 years ago, let them take it and run with it. Because the key is, let's make the commitment to the community. I mean, we've seen, I served on the Hillview Commission. I was here when we signed the taking for the Hillview Commission. I served 12 years on the commission. I served on the Secondary School Building Committee. I supported I was the first grade in the Hood School. We've redone these schools 3 times. So I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen the commitment that people have made, the support of the community as a whole. It's what makes the community what it is, which is a great place to live, a great place to raise your family. And I appreciate the surprise. I appreciate some friends up here and neighbors, that are tuning in tonight too, that again, without their support, I wouldn't be able to do it. The Prennies and the Crookers. And it's terrific. It's nice. It was a wonderful surprise. It's greatly appreciated. Wasn't
Greatly
expecting it.
deserved.
And anything for free coffee and some munch. If that's the excuse you needed, then I'm happy that I could have accommodated you. And thank you for the
100
for the retroactive.
That's great.
We're going to get some pictures real quick.
Let's take a picture.
Are we in a recess?
Yes, we are in a
Yeah, what happened there? A little brief recess?
brief recess.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Leary, you need to get back to work.
Walking into that next step.
Oh my God. I was worried it was not.
That worked out good with the pictures I just did the last time.
It wasn't recording though.
Oh, that was excellent.
It wasn't recorded?
I wasn't recording.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say again, I want to thank, I guess, the town administrator and my colleagues for pulling this thing together and pulling it off, and I didn't know anything about it. So it's just great.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention, first time in 47 years, my wife has ever been to a select board meeting.
She's
She's doing right.
She's already
She's just sticking around for the whole thing either.
came for the important part.
She's a smart woman.
All right, so we can move on to board member reports. Mr. O'Leary.
Board member report. Oh, well, the big thing is, obviously, what's coming up, it was in the paper this past week. but,
And old and new business.
and all of it, it's just the North Reading Community Health Fair, which is coming up the 21st, Saturday the 21st, sponsored by the North Reading Board of Health. Going to be 75 plus vendors there, town agencies, community, regional health centers, regional health coordinators, wellness resources. You can get your vaccines for the flu, pneumonia. You can get your cholesterol check, get your blood pressure check. You can do it. And they're going to have a whole bunch of other activities for the kids. And it's fantastic what they put in. An awful lot of effort, and it would be great to see a lot of support. Take a look at it in this past week's transcript. Look online as to what they're featuring and what's going to be available. And support it. Again, the farmers market. Get your shingles vaccine, pneumonia vaccine, RSV, flu, COVID if you want. Acupuncture, vision, dermatology. Okay.
How's that working?
How's that working out?
You okay?
Yeah, free offerings, free giveaways, and again, to bring something there, you also could be eligible to win a mountain bike. The Hillview Commission has gone out to bid on a couple of contracts for improvements to the course, and in the process of also going out to bid for the management contract. We expect those bids to be in shortly, so we'll know where we stand with things. And again, I want to thank the community again for allowing the Hillview Commission now and going forward to enter into contracts in excess of 3 years if they find it necessary. What they put out the bid is for a 3-year contract right now, but if the bids don't come in right, we'll have the opportunity then to go back out into bids, which provides them a lot more options and opportunities. Again, I thank the community and town meeting and the board for supporting the Hillview Commission on that. Other than that, I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention, I should have done this up front, the passing of two people, two valuable members of this community. One, Dick Spindler, who was the former Department of Public Works director here in North Reading, lifelong resident, 92 years old, lifelong resident of North Reading, spent his entire career working for the town of North Reading, raised 7 children in the community. His wife Joyce, you may know, Spindler and O'Neill, real estate company. Again, it's just been, a true thread in the fabric of this community. Dick was, as I said, worked his way up through the ranks of DPW and became our DPW director. Extremely well respected by the community, by those that worked for him, by previous boards, to the extent I can tell you, over the years, again, been a long time. We've had a few town administrators. We had a reputation for having revolving doors here. Mr. Spindler was so well respected by members of this board at the time that he was appointed as acting town administrator several times, some for long months at a time. And again, the town didn't miss a beat with him at the helm. And he was nothing but gracious as far as any new town administrators that came in, coached them along and brought them right up to speed. And again, went right back to his duties and continued on working as Department of Public Works. And in recognition of his service to the community, town meeting and the board, previous boards, named the Department of Public Works facility after Dick Spindler. And it's always great when we were able to name facilities or rooms and things like that after some people here, while they're still here and they're still with us. And And Dick was just a wonderful guy, so well respected and loved within the community, and going to be sorely missed. So to Joyce and his children, we offer our condolences and our appreciation for his service. And just to mention, 7 children, 9 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. So, big, beautiful family. And then Gene Jones. Representative Brad Jones' mother passed away this past weekend, and we all knew Gene, and I've known Gene again for years and years and years. And not only did she do a good job of raising a kid, who is now serving our community and has served so well as a member of this board and as a state representative, but she was also instrumental in getting the Citizen Scholarship Foundation of North Reading founded with her husband, Brad. And for 40 years, she toiled away raising funds so that she could assist North Reading students go on to higher education. And she was tireless in her efforts in doing that and raised tens of thousands of dollars. And what they've asked for is if people want to make a contribution, make it in Gene and Brad's name to the Citizen Scholarship Foundation. But again, I think she was also 92 years old and was here for close to 70 years. And just again, someone in the community who was deeply dedicated and involved, and going to be sorely missed. And to Brad and his brothers and sisters, our condolences and again our appreciation for Gene's service to our community and just being an active member of the community. So, now, thank you.
Mr. Wallner?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Mrs. Fowler?
Well, the only update I had is something that's on the agenda, at least for board reports. It's that committee for the fire station that the master planning wants to set up, but I think it's in the packet. And also to congratulate the band, the marching band took first place in the hosted it and took first place in the competition, so congratulations to them.
Is that a first? For them taking first place?
I think so.
I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the spooktacular, haunted Halloween. Haunted playground, sorry, spooktacular is my work. Haunted playground, next weekend. So it's on the Batchelder lot. It's a big festival of fun, lots of family fun, lots of food. Scary, fun, happy stuff. Bring your kids and safe. Yeah. It's a great fundraiser for the maskers, so you can put it in your calendar and stop by. It's a lot of fun. And I think you pay tickets when you get there, so bring cash. Bring your cash so you can buy tickets. I don't think they take credit cards there, so bring some money and have some fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Studo?
2 updates. One, there is a wastewater advisory committee meeting this coming Wednesday at 7. Again, where the members will reconvene just to go over and answer some questions, just get some more details out to continue our work. And then there has also been a development on the 20 Elm Street project, and next steps will be that it is heading back to the ZBA, but if you allow me, I'd like to defer to Mr. Gilberto just to read that statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. On October 10th, the State Housing Appeals Committee denied the safe harbor declaration issued by the Board of Appeals in response to a Chapter 40B housing development proposed for 20 Elm Street in 2019 by NY Ventures. The Housing Appeals Committee found that the town did not meet the 1.5% land area minimum of acreage associated with affordable housing. The Housing Appeals Committee had previously denied the Board of Appeals' assertion that certain mobile home units and potentially unaccounted for group home units increased the town's affordable housing unit count above the state 10% threshold to assert safe harbor from a Chapter 40B housing development. The Board of Appeals and Town Hall staff made a good faith effort in 2019 to calculate land area directly associated with affordable housing, including relying on information provided by state agencies at that time for confidential group homes. in determining that the town met the 1.5% land area minimum threshold to declare safe harbor. The Housing Appeals Committee sided with land area calculations provided by the developer for 11 of 12 of the identified affordable housing parcels, including denying the inclusion of septic fields as land area directly associated with affordable housing, and also elected to reduce the land area associated with confidential group homes by nearly 50 acres based on changes made to state guidelines in 2020. While an appeal of this action is a possibility in the future, the Housing Appeals Committee has remanded the case back to the North Reading Board of Appeals to be considered through the public hearing process. An appeal, if any, cannot occur until after the hearing process has concluded and the Board of Appeals has issued a decision. The Board of Appeals is expected to open a public hearing on the application at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you.
And that was all.
That is all?
That's it.
All right. The 13th Annual Veterans Dinner will take place this year at the Hillview Country Club, with Ultra Chic running it, from 5 to 9 p.m. on Saturday, November 11. Doors will open at 4. Tickets are available. I believe there will be a cost to the tickets, but it won't be a lot. In the past, it's been at the Tewksbury Country Club, which was donated completely, so there was no cost to anyone. But that is closed and is now a brewery, I believe. So the Hillview is taking it on, Ultra Chic is taking it on, and I want to say $25 for the ticket, I think I saw, or something like that. Nothing exorbitant, for, a great night. And it'd be nice to have it at home again, actually. So, and then the community impact team, is having a mental health first aid for North Reading and Youth Substance Use Prevention Coalition are proud to offer mental health first aid for youth, an interactive educational program for adults who work with or care for youth. So it's a 3-part. What part of it is work on your own, and then there's 2 nights of instruction, and it's free. So if you want more information on that and all of the other things the community impact team does and offers to the community, you can go on to the www.northreadingmass.gov/CIT for more information on all of that. And then for old and new business, I happened to be on the North Reading Community Connection and saw some Carrie Vidala post about a family that formerly lived in North Reading, the Pinero family, who lost their daughter, Mallory Kate. She lost her battle with cancer. So her and Jen Burnham were asking people to get pink bows like this or similar and put them on your mailbox, just to show, community backing for that family who are on this site. And the mother has responded and been so thankful. So I reached out to the TA because the gazebo is lit in pink anyway right now, and asked if it would be okay to put the ribbons on the gazebo, which he agreed to. So I just want to tell everybody about that. Like, get yourself a pink ribbon, put it on your mailbox, and put one down on the gazebo and show this family, that we care and, we're there for them. And I think it would mean a lot to them. So. And also Jean Jones, thank you for bringing up Jean Jones. Just a wonderful lady. Her and her husband, I got to know them through the Republican Town Committee, and then I cut Jean's hair for years. And she will be missed. She will be missed. She was a great lady. So thank you for speaking.
You did a
on
nice
that.
job on her hair, too.
Thank you.
She always looked lovely.
So that is all. And now on to our next agenda item, fire station renovation project. Everybody's chomping at the bit over there. And I will hand that over to you, Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. We're joined here by the Chair of the Facilities Master Plan Committee, Finance Committee member Abby Hurlbut, and she is accompanied by representatives of the town's architectural firm who's been helping with the master planning effort. HKT, Bill Hammer is here. He's been before us, I think, at least once before. Paula, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name.
Claridge.
Paula Claridge from HKT as well, who will be helping with the project. We have, I think, 3 slides that I can put up on the projector there, and I think if it's okay, I can turn it over to Abby.
Okay. So I think most of you are aware of the the fire station. I've been looking at the police station project. At the fire station renovation, we did a presentation at town meeting. We did at various things around town. There was stuff at the fire station, fire prevention awareness, open house last weekend. It's a project that the Facilities Master Plan has been working on for over 2 years, and we've reached the point where we're going into the final design and drawings to go out to bid, and hopefully with the support of the Board of Selectmen, have a request for funding at June town meeting. I thought tonight that you people might be interested in seeing not necessarily what the absolute final, this is going to be Joe's office, this is going to be Frank's office, but the overall plan for the building as such, which won't change very much at all, if at all, and where it's going and how we're going to get there. So Bill Hammer, who has worked with us from HKT Architects, and his associate Paula Claridge, who, by the way, will be the project manager for HKT on the fire station renovation, are both here to give you a short presentation on what it's going to look like.
Thank you.
Oh, can I add one thing? This fire station project is big. It's not as big as many projects that we've done in town. It should give the town 40 to 50 years of useful life of a central main fire station. This is not to say that at some point going forward, given the increased population on the west side of town, that in order to facilitate better fire protection for those people at some point, we'll probably have to think about something smaller on that side of town. So I just want to make it clear that this is not going to solve all of our problems, but it will solve a huge number of problems for a long time.
Thank you.
You folks, you can speak right from that
Just
table.
like they
Oh, yeah. There's a microphone.
This is-
There's a microphone.
It should pick you up, no problem.
Okay. Well, good evening. What's left of it? We are happy to sort of show you what we've done. I'm just going to say that our charge, which I think we have been able to accomplish, is to expand the fire station, as you all know, but really to bring the fire station up to a level of what includes 21st century fire station should be. Not only in terms of supporting firefighters, but, you know, we're learning more and more about the kinds of things that can happen when a firefighter returns from an event. They're just covered with all kinds of toxic stuff. And one of the trends in modern fire stations now is to really have what we call a pathway to decontamination. Yeah, too many the vowels and syllables. Anyway, I think we've achieved that. I'm going to turn this over to Paula. I don't want to get bogged down in detail. We can answer questions. Paula is the project architect and has done a great job on this, and so I'm going to
Do you have separate slides that you're going to go through?
Yeah, they were the ones that were
I
there.
think that Bill gave Mike the thumb drive, is that
Okay.
right?
Yeah, here it is.
How do I access it? Hold on. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So I guess you give it first engineer this thing to share. You should just do it like that.
So I'll just take you through a brief summary of an overview of what we're proposing at the existing fire station.
Speak louder. Sorry, I can't hear.
That's all right. So this is just the existing site. The building, the fire station is off to the left side of the existing combined building with the police station. Police station's off to the right-hand side. Our proposed renovation and addition. Everything you see here in the center, that's the buff color, is the new portion. The police station will stay as it is, and this existing portion of the fire station will also stay as it is, but will be renovated on the interior. At the basement, we're pushing out and taking over this part of the area here to expand storage and to provide a training room down in the basement with new upgraded mechanical room, putting in a second stair for fire egress and an elevator to make the building more accessible. There currently is no elevator in the building. The existing garage storage is going to remain as it is. The first floor, we're going to expand the apparatus bay, extending out to the front towards Park Street and extending out the back to provide more room for the apparatus vehicles. We're also, as Bill had mentioned, adding a decontamination zone here for when the firefighters come back from calls, they can clean off before they go up to their residential areas and leave all those toxins and carcinogens down in this decontamination zone here. And all of their gear storage and gear lockers will be down here as well. And we're providing a handicap accessible entrance to the main entry that will remain and creating a bigger lobby area. The second floor is going to be renovated in the existing building, and then we're adding a whole new floor over the top of the apparatus bays. So we'll have dorm rooms for all the firefighters, a day room for them to stay in during the day, study rooms and report writing, and then a fitness center is going to be moved up from the basement. It's just in this really dark little room, so they'll have a true fitness area here, and another training room up here as well. And then the roof, the existing roof will stay as it is. The area over the apparatus bay, we're going to be putting in a new pitched roof to try to raise that up to gain that living space on the second floor, but still have the appearance on Park Street mimic what's already there, so it will appear pretty much the same. And then a flat roof over the extension out at the front and a flat roof over the living area out at the back, and a new cupola on top. So from the front and from Park Street, the building should look very similar to as it does now, all brick, bigger doors to accommodate the apparatus vehicles, but still the dormers and the pitched roof over the apparatus bay. And then the view along Park Street, everything that's in gray here is existing to remain, and then the new elements are in the red brick here. And then from the south side of the building, we're putting all of the flat roofs and the extension out to the back, so they won't be quite so visible from Park Street. So you'll still have that same elevation of the building as you drive through on the front of the building.
Can I just say one thing? The flat roofs are going to be designed in such a way so that should the town decide to use solar energy for this building, they would take solar panels. And the fire station is sited very well for solar use. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, no, that's pretty much it. But yes, we are planning on structural, accommodating for structural and electrical raceways for future photovoltaics on the roof.
I think the other thing I would add to that is we're now finished with the schematic design phase. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. And one of the things that we are looking at is to make this building net zero. And in addition to the possibility of solar, we'll do our consulting engineers will do an analysis to examine the payback of various net zero strategies. The building is going to be all electric, and we hope to be able to come back at some point as this develops and say, listen, if you went with this solar panel design, you could amortize this in, I would say, anything under 10 years makes a lot of sense. And we will even look at geothermal wells. And we're using a lot of that. And we use it only to show how much you really can save. It's not just to be sexy, which it is, but is to really bring everybody into dealing with these climate change issues that we're seeing pretty graphically these days. So that's where we're headed.
Do I have questions from the board? Mr. Studo?
I have a question. On the, and I don't know if we've gotten this far, but on the financing side, can we use any of the specialty like SRF funding? Does this fall under that?
Not for the SRF program, it wouldn't. The resources available for public building construction are pretty targeted. Schools, libraries are another one that's pretty common. It's a little bit more challenging when we're talking about public safety renovations. We'll certainly keep our eyes open, but we don't have a very high expectation.
Not to even get grants, but so there's no specialty like...
I'm not aware of any
Funding,
financing that, I mean, there may be a state agency that we can work with to borrow from. I would suspect it won't be to the advantage like SRF is in terms of the interest rate.
Okay.
But we certainly can look into that.
Anyone else?
Just for the geothermal, does RMLD do geothermal projects?
I'm sorry?
Does the
They don't.
RMLD,
They
the
don't.
local electric company,
They don't.
They don't rebate on geothermal.
No, that's not really tied to electric.
What's that?
That's not tied to electricity.
No, it's not.
It's more of the mechanical system.
Well, who would do that for us? So I know
mechanical.
Eversource did it where
Yeah, but it's a specialty.
has a
There are,
primary project in Framingham. It's one of the first in the state, so I'm very familiar with it. But who would do that for us here?
It would be designed by our mechanical engineers along with the specialty consultant that designs the well layout itself. And then as part of the mechanical design, they're tied in to that. So it would be our consultants and then a special contractor that installs them.
Who would manage that?
That would be under the general contractor.
I'm just curious
we've
about how that would be
done
done.
this in a lot of cases. We did the Cambridge fire station. That was a much older building than this, 1912. And it became net zero, but we put in geothermal there. we've done geothermal, did we?
We
do
just did it in
Ashland?
Ashland in their public safety
Yeah.
building as well.
And that's got a lot of groundwater, and that groundwater has got potentially a lot of energy in it, heating and cooling. Yeah.
My only other question, Madam Chair, I sort of talked to this with Mrs. Hurlbut about this, but if we're moving forward on the downtown sewer project,
Right.
is that incorporated into your design, or is that going to be addressed separately?
The downtown sewer project will probably take place about the same or just before they start moving the equipment bays out. The equipment bays are going to come out about 10 feet, so it's going to be short of the existing sewer that services that building. Okay. So it certainly would be nice to figure out how they can be coordinated.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be possible because it's done with ARPA funds. There is a time consideration. But that project is in the hands of Mr. Parisi, who I check with from time to time. But it's a good question because it is something that the capital committee has been trying to get passed for the last 4 or 5 years, and it was finally, thanks to the Board of Selectmen, approved very recently. Unfortunately, they were not approved for the full initial request, but for a lesser amount. And so one of the things that Mr. Parisi is doing at the moment is working with the engineers to come up with a scheme that might in fact be able to be done within the money that was granted through ARPA funding. So I think they're getting there, and it's very possible that that would be completed before or about the same time as the work really starts on the fire station.
I was thinking just because of that geothermal piece would have to be
The
coordinated.
geothermal piece will probably not be in the front end.
Okay.
But I think the geothermal, I mean, right now, the fire station is set up to be very, very efficient. All right, using all the modern stuff that we're putting in the library and some other buildings. And so the question about whether you move on to, in fact, incorporate solar panels on the back roof, or whether you look at geothermal is being looked into, but it's not part of the initial project in the sense that that's not what our numbers are based on. And it really doesn't affect to a real degree the interior design of the building.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Anyone else? Mr. O'Leary?
I just think it's imperative that we do incorporate, the geothermal or some other alternative energy source rather than gas or oil in it. And then and also as you get into the nitty-gritty of the details here, provisions for electric vehicles too, moving forward.
What?
Electric vehicles moving forward too. In other words, the charging stations for, just incorporated into it.
What
My
are
other
the
question
police
is,
doing about that, Steve?
what's that?
What are the police doing about that?
I'm not blaming police, fire, or anybody else. We should be doing something about it.
No,
This is
well, we as a town should. You're absolutely
Yeah, no, we
100%
should be.
correct. I agree with you.
Yeah,
But do the police have a charging station for their,
not yet,
No, not this
what are
time.
they doing?
not
They
yet.
have a hybrid
Okay.
vehicle, it's a hybrid vehicle that self-charges, I believe. It's a hybrid vehicle that
But
self-charges.
again, as we're going into projects such as this, I mean, we should just, as we say, get to the 21st century here and incorporate all this stuff in here now, rather than going after it later on. My only other question, as far as the topography in the back of the building here, where the river has on occasion come up and into the building, is there any prospect of how are we going to address that, or are we addressing it at all?
We've been working with our civil engineers. It's been apparently, correct me, it's been quite a while since that has happened.
It has been a while. We understand that the dam at Boston is being removed as well, so that's going to alleviate backup should occur.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what-
but nothing further that I'm aware of that we're doing, correct?
Well, except that you're moving a lot of stuff that was in trouble if there was any water in the basement, out of the basement.
The other thing is, we are just finishing up a study for Castle Island, which, those of you who know Sullivan's Restaurant, and they figure that will be, within the next 20 years, it will be an actual island again. And so we've been specifying in flood zones, there are doors that are designed to withstand the pressure, and they have gaskets around it, and the pressure of the water forces the door to tighten up, and it keeps the water out. It's pretty amazing. Now, with the overhead doors in the basement, in that area, we can do something similar. We haven't really come across this, to be honest, for overhead doors, but it is designed now so that if water gets in there, there's nothing on the ground, there's nothing there that could get damaged. And I think we will be looking at, what we can do, because you're right about the dam, and that is going to change it probably.
We do have wetland scientists as
I'm
part
sorry,
of
you
our...
have what?
We do have wetland scientists as part of our design team, so they will be advising us as
Yeah,
well.
I just know,
as well.
we used to play softball out behind the
I know,
behind the
everybody
fire
talks
station,
about
the
that.
police station, but, now you can't do that. And we've got these Jersey barriers, to help stem the tide at times. So as we go through this major renovation here, I'm just curious as to how or if we can address it, because the flow is going to increase, it appears,
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think we have a partial answer, but I wouldn't say we have the complete answer yet.
Okay, just as long as you're looking at it and hopefully you're addressing it, that'd be great.
Yeah, we've done at least 2 visits with the conservation agent to look at the wetlands and look at some of the issues that she foresees or doesn't foresee. And we've also done soil borings and things like that for the renovation. And, so far we're okay, but, they will look at it a lot more as we get into the soil design part.
And just going back to the geothermal systems that you're looking at, will we be able to expand the use of that geothermal to other facilities in the area?
Oh, you mean
The
in the
same
immediate area?
police station,
like-
first of all, but
the
I mean-
Police station and that?
Can you go across the street to the library?
I don't think you can go quite that far. There is a certain distance maximum you can go, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm trying to think if we've ever done one on, I know we've done them, in fact, we're doing one right now in Cambridge. It's for the DPW site. So there are several buildings on this one site, all working off of, eventually be working off of the geothermal field. The biggest impediment is we have an MWRA right-of-way right through the middle, and it took us almost a year to get a permit just to cross that 20-foot right-of-way.
No, I'm just saying, if we're going to be investing in this, is there an opportunity to expand, as you're going down?
Bill, is it safe to say that at a minimum, the police department could benefit from this?
Oh, yeah.
We've talked to the police department because they were going to be putting in mini splits or putting in a new AC and HVAC, whatever. I don't remember exactly what, right about now. And, we said, can't we do one thing for the whole building? And apparently they're going to move forward with something for themselves now, but they're aware of the fact that it would be nice to be able to have the whole building under one system.
It would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possible.
All set?
Thank you.
All my colleagues are all set. I just have one question about the flat roof. What is the purpose? I'm just thinking about winter and
Think of
ice.
it like this, Leanne. Here's Park Street, here's whatever, the cupola is right there.
Yeah.
Okay? So if they make this flat, you're no longer under the eaves of the bank, you actually have another floor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm thinking about snow and ice and the effects of that.
Redesigned for that.
Yeah, it's not perfectly flat. There is a slight pitch to it,
Okay.
so water and snow and everything will drain off.
Okay, all right. Okay, that was my question.
They're designed to the solar panels now with a specific type of roofing. They figured out that when they put the panels on with the roofing on the flat roof, it reflects under as well as on top of to get more energy generated now. So that you could put the membrane on a flat roof to be able to do that if they do install solar. It's pretty cool.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
And you guys all have a pass out of basically this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys, thanks.
So, yeah, just one more, just timeline, what are we looking at?
Well, let me just tell you that I've been looking at the work that's being done in Winfield and Middleton, and they're all going back in for more money because they sat around on projects. The Middleton's going in for $10 million this week. And we won't discuss Linfield because they need a $65 million library. So the game plan here is to go as quickly as possible now. We've spent a lot of time on this design. Now let's fast track it so that we don't get hung up with huge increased costs in construction and this, that, and the other thing. So the idea is that between now and June, we finish the final design, we hire an OPM probably in January. We move on to all that nitty-gritty stuff, and then go to the town meeting, assuming that the Board of Selectmen is in agreement, to ask for funding for it, and then shortly after that, I would assume go for an override election. That's the game plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to get that out there. I just want to get that out there. That's good.
No, and the other piece is, Steve, that there has been some, a percentage of the budget built in for inflation, assuming that we go out to bid with contractors in, say, July. Right. If things don't work this way, it's obviously going to cost more. I mean, you've seen some of the local projects and what's happening. It's just, it's insane. So hopefully this will work. And, you know, my intention is to, I go to sleep at night thinking about, oh my God, what is that room in the fire station? Do we really have a room in it? All right, so I would really like to get some sleep, which means getting this project done without another override. I've been going back to all of the police building committee's minutes to see if they ran into any problems when they did their half of the building. Because it's the same building, so if you're gonna have problems on one side, you're gonna probably have them in the other when you did a gut renovation. So far, there was some stupid shit that happened with that project, and there were reasons why they went out for a second and a third override. They were not because of problems with the building, so that was good to know.
And structurally, you already took care of the apparatus floor years ago.
Yeah, but the apparatus bay, the reason why they're changing the doors is because those big double doors have been a nightmare for the fire department. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, so they're going back to the old system. And also, I don't know if you noticed it, but eliminating a number of the columns on the apparatus bay.
I don't know. Yeah. Were you going to speak about the committee?
You have a we need to set up a fire building committee, and a resolution before you that suggests it is the facilities master plan with the addition of the fire chief, who has requested 2 firefighters from his team, the DPW director, and I don't have a copy of the motion in front of me. And these are basically people that represent a lot of different areas in town and have been on the project since it began, so it'll be nice since we need to get this taken care of and have people that are up to speed and they're familiar with it on board.
Were there going to be select board members on?
Yes, well, there's a select board member on the facilities master plan,
Which is Mrs. Minipelli.
This is not a problem.
But you're talking about, it's in there proposing the facilities master plan plus the additional members. That's adding those as just for this particular project.
Yes.
Chief Stats, 2 firefighters, one additional select board member, and Joe Parisi.
So additional besides you, Mrs.
But wait
Minipelli?
for the TA's hand up.
Mr. Gilberto?
I just want to note, it looks like the motion that got written, put in the packet, doesn't include that second select board member.
I didn't see
That's
that.
an unintentional oversight on it. The document you have from the committee, I think, reflects what they're looking for.
So,
Committee of 12.
Well, I mean, part of the reason is that Kate's up for reelection. It would be nice to have somebody that's not going to be up for reelection, that's going to be here for a couple of years to see this project through.
are you assuming that?
So that must eliminate Steve too, because he's
I'm up
up
for
for
reelection
reelection.
also, yeah.
At any rate,
That puts
I
it
don't
on.
think you,
I'll put it
I have to consult with my wife, see if I can run again.
You can decide,
I already
you
checked,
know,
no.
who should be from the board. That's, the naming of that individual is not a part of the motion.
Is that a necessary part of the motion?
Can we get back to it?
At some point, we'll need to designate who the member is, yes.
Well, the other thing is that if you just want to have the member of the select board that's serving on the facilities master plan be a representative, that's okay too.
I think I might be misreading, Madam. I think I might be misreading what's in the file then, what's in our select board file.
Yeah, Mr. Gilberto said what our information is different from the motion.
So what you received, which I think I pasted from Abby, into the packet showed the members of the Facilities Master Plan Committee, plus the fire chief, plus 2 firefighters, plus the Director of Public Works, and plus a second Select Board member. There's already 1 Select Board member on the Facilities Master Plan Committee. And what I rose my hand earlier to say was that the motion does not include that second Select Board member on it. That's an error.
I added one.
My concern more is continuity than how many.
Well, you have other elected officials serving on the master plan committee, so you're going to have continuity issues no matter what if they don't get reelected or they don't run for reelection.
Do we feel it's necessary to have another select board member or just the one?
I think so. No, I'm not doing it.
Oh, well, if you think so, then,
Yeah, definitely.
Mr. O'Leary?
It's great of him to be volunteering others.
I'm not,
Yeah, he thinks that somebody else really should do that.
Generally what we've done though is we usually have a liaison to whatever the committee is,
Yes.
things like that. So we have one representative. And those have changed over the year, even on the secondary
Right.
school building committee. We had Mr. Delaney for a number of years, and then what happened was, he didn't run for reelection. I got appointed by the chair at the time to be the representative from the school, from the select board, and we appointed Mr. Delaney as another member. We were able to
Yeah.
backfill the position.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we have that flexibility. I don't know that we need to designate a second member of the board at this particular time,
And
but
that's how I'm feeling. I feel that we can leave that.
I understand the continuity issue, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to Kate's point, we're always going to have those issues.
Right.
And fortunately, this appears to be a fast track.
This is really construction will take about a year. All right, so this is probably about a year and a half, 2-year commitment. This is not an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
the way the school building committee was.
That was quick, too.
Still needs master plan to come.
Right, Don?
Never ends.
It never ends.
So
It's still not
I think
extended
this
for
is
other
a
reasons.
much shorter term.
Mr. Studo?
Can we keep it open?
We can always add to
I
it.
think we can leave the motion as is without the extra board member.
Or just add the extra board member, just on name, that's all.
Well, you can also name
No.
a member of the board to be
Alternate.
liaison to the fire station building committee.
We could do that at another time.
Yeah, that doesn't have to happen now.
All right, so why don't we just,
Leave it as is.
you leave it as is?
I don't think we shouldn't hear anything to
We
the
can always
school
decide to do
project.
something
That's the
different.
gift that keeps on giving to us for years and years.
Let's just get it
Okay.
going.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move to establish a fire station building committee to advise the Department of Public Works on the renovation of the fire station. Said committee consisting of the following members. Members of the Facility Master Plan Committee, plus fire chief, plus 2 firefighters, plus director of public works.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Studo. Any further discussion?
Just as far as the firefighters, how are we going to designate that? Chief designee, town administrator designee? Are we going to,
The chief has had a small group of firefighters that have been actively involved in meeting with the Facilities Master Plan Group when they've had meetings at the fire station with HKT, et cetera, and have given, has had a lot of interest in the project and have given a lot of really valuable input. So my guess is maybe, not my call, but I would leave it up to the chief.
yeah, it just, Mr. Waller's going to have to sign an appointment slip. And we're not going to, so at some point we'll have to designate them.
We should
Again,
take the
based upon the chief's
recommendation of the chief,
Yeah.
because we have to appoint
We have the
them.
appointing authority, right. So that's why I'm asking. The other ones are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Do they even know that this Jim Grease even know it's going to be on another committee? It's fine.
And at some point they'll have to get sworn in, so.
So for the appointment of the 2 firefighters, we would take the chief's
The chief's
recommendation.
recommendation.
But it has to be appointed by the board.
Right. Okay,
They
Chief.
would have to be appointed.
Do that.
Okay. I know you can. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. O'Leary? Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurlbut.
And to the consultants, go ahead, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for help.
And now we're on to review the North Shore Regional 911 Center Agreement. Were we doing that? We have a motion
Just a
and...
motion.
We do have a motion, if I can give just a brief description.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't know that a full presentation is necessary,
Please,
but
yeah.
we've been talking about, this for a couple of years now, under the leadership of the chief, fire chief who's here this evening. We had a letter of intent that we signed. There was a study that was done to evaluate the feasibility of the town joining the Regional 911. We were accepted by the state 911 over the summer to join this group, and the final step to kick off that process formally, a process that will be about 18 months for us to be onboarded to Regional 911. That next step is to sign the intermunicipal agreement. So we have a motion there to approve and sign, subject to town council review for both the chair and I to sign that document. I will note that we have met with, over the past 5 years, multiple collective bargaining units in public safety and come to an agreement for potential transition, subject to discussion of some of the details. But we've done so agreeably with those units over the years with the leadership of the Select Board, Chief Stats, Chief Murphy, and more recently Chief Zimmerman. So next step is a vote, which we have a motion prepared for this evening.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move, subject to town council review, to approve and authorize the select board chair and town administrator to sign the addendum to the intermunicipal agreement for the joint provision of public safety communications, dispatch, and operation services to include a new member, North Reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion?
Just a
Mrs.
question
Minipelli?
for clarification. It's for a 10-year period. Is this a requirement to then go to town meeting for approval?
Madam Chair, through you, the agreement that we'd be entering into would expire in 2029.
Correct.
Chief, it will co-terminate with a previous 10-year agreement that the other communities were in. So if we were looking to go for a term of, say, another 10 years, then that would require legislative body approval, I believe, at that point in time, whatever that term is. An important note, there is no option for withdrawal in the first part of this, that 5 years that we're talking. It will actually end up being about 4 years by the time we on board. So we would be making a commitment for the duration of the 4 years, but there will be another agreement that would need to be put in place come 2029. So the term that we're talking about here it ends up effectively being about 4 years.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I just think this is another great step forward on an initiative that we took here several years ago. It's taken a lot of time and effort and energy to cull through it. It's going to provide the community with the ability to put more firefighters, able to respond immediately without having to hire more people necessarily. And then same thing with the police department, put more police officers on the street, and again with no additional cost. And I want to acknowledge, strongly acknowledge and note our appreciation to the collective bargaining units, the police station and the fire station for working with us over the last 2 contracts to agree to language without knowing what we would have to get into other than the concept of what we were looking to do. And they've already agreed to work with us to get this done and signed off on it. So we can just move forward. And again, I think it's a big win for the community and something that we've been working on for a long time. Acknowledge the administration and the chiefs, their efforts, and again, the unions for their cooperation and coming to agreement to allow this implementation to take place. I think it's great.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Next to it? Oh, here. Here too? Just okay. Moving on to the wastewater project update.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
could I just have one moment?
of course, Chief. Of
Thank you,
course
ma'am.
can.
I just wanted to take a moment and thank the Select Board for your cooperation, and thank the Town Administrator for his support as well, and both of these last 2 projects we just discussed. Really appreciate it. It's been a lot of hard work and effort on everybody's part, including the Fire Department and the Police Department personnel as well. So thank you very much.
And we want to thank you as well. We get to go home now? You too. Okay, moving on to the wastewater update.
Madam Chair, through you, we have a brief update on the wastewater project this evening in advance of a wastewater project committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday evening. That's a hybrid meeting, by the way, so folks can attend either in person here in room 14 or via Zoom. We are joined by Public Works Director Joe Parisi, who is participating via Zoom. I see Joe's there. Joe, thanks for joining us. I am going to just kind of quickly go through the slides as on one part an update, and on another part what we're looking to do moving forward.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
Would you please acknowledge that...
I will acknowledge that Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Wallner will be recusing themselves for this portion and will become civilians.
Civilians reserve our rights to speak as citizens and registered voters.
So just a general update. The terms of the federal money that we are utilizing for final design required a procurement process for final design work. Proposals were due today. 3 were received and are under review, and a contract will be awarded later this week and signed by the end of this month. So we're moving forward with that design and following the process that the federal government requires. North Andover and Andover have both been provided our engineers' analysis of routes through those communities, and follow-up meetings will be scheduled in the coming weeks with them. The town was informed last week that it did not receive a MassWorks grant award for the current grant round. This was the anticipated outcome based on our not having a private development partner identified. However, we will continue to pursue available state and federal grant funding. And as I mentioned earlier, and as Mrs. Studo mentioned, the wastewater project committee will meet on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Just very quickly, the information that we'll be focused on gathering, in addition to the final design, to the extent possible, at the estimated impact of the development on the town's services. We expect that we'll be able to work with FXM and Kleinfelder, the two consultants we've been working with along the way, for that information. That's a question that we have received throughout the process and want to work more on. Secondly, to the extent possible, the estimated cost to operate a municipal wastewater system and how that might be funded. We know that that's a concern the community has, and we know that on the front end, it's likely that there will be substantial costs that might not be able to be borne entirely by ratepayers who are connected to the utility. And then the third item that we'll be looking at is a further analysis of our bonding capacity. It's a different question than the question of can we go forward with borrowing for this project. We know that answer. The answer is yes, we can. The question is, what impact might that have on our bond rating? Where might there be other borrowing capacity that's coming off the town's books in the future years that could offset that? And what might we be able to do to mitigate that impact? Again, knowing that we are taking advantage of a very generous financing source in this sewer revolving fund, state revolving fund, which will fund at between 2 and 2.5% over the period we're looking to borrow. So just wanted to provide that update here in this forum, which I know a lot of folks are paying attention to. We'll provide a similar update to the Wastewater Project Committee on Wednesday evening at their meeting, and they will have further discussion of some of the questions that they've received and how they may look to answer them moving forward. But we're in this information gathering phase right now, and hope to have more information later in the fall for the community to begin to consider leading up to what we think will be an early or mid-spring special town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Parisi, anything to add? Through you, Madam Chair.
Well, I covered that well.
What do you say?
Covered well.
Oh.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. All right, any questions, comments? All right, thank you. You can come back if you like. We're going to move on to the review list of boards, commissions, committees to be advertised.
Madam Chair, through you, this is a procedural step that we have been trying to take each year before we go out and advertise for candidates. Our strategy has been to advertise for all of the town's board and committee positions so that we have that list of candidates to draw from should vacancies occur not only now, but during the course of a term. We've been doing that for the past couple of years, which means that we show vacancies for positions that we may not have actual vacancies right now, just looking to make sure there's no feedback from the board to the contrary on that. There has not been in previous years when we've gone through this part of the process. But we'll continue to advertise both for the Board of Selectmen, select board appointments, and for the town administrator appointments as well. But for those who are current members, it does not necessarily reflect that folks are not being reappointed. We're merely doing so to have that pool of candidates for the future if needed.
Okay. Thank you.
So folks should just look for that announcement. It should be on social media and the newspaper in the next couple of weeks. And as the board knows, the appointments are generally done in the month of December, along with the reappointments.
Okay. Vote to file home rule petition approved at October 2nd fall annual town meeting.
Madam Chair, can I just ask you about these vacancies? It looks like there's a lot of vacancies here.
Yes, there are.
Where is this list going to be posted so members of the community can see which ones of these have vacancies? Because on the activity form, they put which board or commission they'd like to be considered to be appointed to. So I know this list is for us. Do you know if will it be made public?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. So it'll be posted on the town's website and then blast emailed. It will be submitted to the North Reading Transcript and printed on at least one occasion in their edition. and then we post it to the town's social media presence at the town hall Facebook page, and then we share that to the North Reading Community Connection as well. So folks will see what all of the potential opportunities are, including where they might be able to express their interest. We don't generally include the number of vacancies on that because we want people to tell us what they're interested in so that we have those names. We don't want to confuse them by saying we don't have any vacancies because then they won't apply. So we try to broadcast it pretty broadly and have seen some success in recent years. The board knows when we've been in a jam on a particular committee, we've sort of focused our outreach on that one committee. We've also been able to solicit candidates, but this has worked well as a general approach.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All set?
No, I just had a question on the list, but I'll talk to Jen after.
Okay. All right, so moving on to vote to file home rule petition approved at October 2nd, fall annual town meeting.
Madam Chair, through you very briefly, sort of as it reads, this is something that at times the legislature has come back to us and said, is there a vote of the select board to file this? We're just covering that right now by doing so. We've already given the language to Representative Jones' office. The one thing I have to note is we're still working through that design process for the Chestnut Street Bridge, so there is a blank section in the legislation. We're hoping we can get the legislation filed and then update it after the fact. With the exact plan and square footage. If we can't do that, we'd like to have the vote of the board so that we're able to update that language as soon as it comes in and get it filed. So we're at a stage in the session where every week, every month is precious, and we want to get it done, and we have full confidence in the legislative delegation. But having the votes now will allow us to proceed.
Okay, so we have a motion for that?
Yep. Madam Chair, I move to approve language for home rule petitions approved under Articles 13 and 22 of the October 2nd, 2023 fall annual town meeting. 2, and to direct the town administrator to submit the associated legislation to the state delegation.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second from Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Appointments to Youth Service Committee.
So it's going to be, I'm going to read 2 of them, and it's simply because different expiration dates for their term.
Right.
So, Madam Chair, I move to place in nomination the following names for appointment to the Youth Services Committee for terms to expire December 31, 2024. 2 openings: Julie Elkins, Christina Gondolfo, Randy Negron, Amy Solomon, and Safani Thomas.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second.
Yep. In this case,
Are we, yes?
yeah, I'm the liaison to Youth Services.
You are the liaison? Okay.
Yep, so some of the candidates, I'm only going to be picking one for this particular expiration. This is in consultation with the chair and vice chair. And some of the candidates have already gone to other committees.
Okay.
And so 2 have come forward to interview with us. And so for this one, Amy Solomon is the name that we'd like to pick.
Just one?
One,
Like you
because
had
there's
2?
going to be a second one for different expiration.
Okay, so just one for this one?
One for this one.
Okay.
But even though there's 2 openings,
There's 2
there's
openings.
still openings, but we're just appointing one
We're appointing
for
one.
right now.
Because we have another motion that'll pick the second one. Because of different expiration terms.
Oh, okay, so there's just one opening for 2024.
Right, okay.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, that's confusing.
Yep.
Okay.
I had to think about
So this will be a name
Yeah.
roll call?
Yep.
Mr. O'Leary?
Amy Solomon.
Mr. Wallner?
Amy Solomon.
Mrs. Manu Pelli?
Amy Solomon.
Mr. Studo?
Amy Solomon.
And then myself is Amy Solomon.
Good. Okay, Madam Chair, I move to place in nomination the following names for appointment to the Youth Services Committee for terms to expire December 31, 2025. And that is Julie Elkins, Christina Gondolfo, Randy Negron, Amy Solomon, and Sienna Thomas.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary.
And again, Sienna, like Amy, came and interviewed with us during the last session, very experienced, but very enthusiastic about working with our new Youth Services Director. So I'm recommending Sienna Thomas.
This will be a name roll call. Mr. O'Leary,
Sienna Thomas.
Mr. Wallner,
Sienna Thomas.
Mrs. Manu Pelli,
Sandy Thomas.
Mr. Studo,
Damon Thomas.
myself is Sienna Thomas.
Thank you. Order minutes.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move to approve the regular session meeting minutes as written for the following date, July 17th, 2023.
Second.
Mr. Gilbert.
Are we just, are you passing over a couple of items, or are we?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm asking it. That's fine with me if you want to.
I just want the motions, and then he
Oh, I
said,
missed that. All right.
I just was assuming it was next, and I just saw it wasn't.
He really wanted to get to
I
that.
wasn't gonna.
He was,
Well, do you want to vote on this and then? And then we'll go back. Sorry. Sabotage.
I'll withdraw my second.
You want to wait on it?
do we want to,
Let's stick with the agenda.
do we want to just,
Yeah, just stick with the agenda.
okay, we'll stick with the agenda. So we're going to review and discuss, well, we had a motion and a second, didn't we, on the
I
floor?
withdrew my second.
Oh, you withdrew it, okay.
Sorry about that.
So we're going to review and discuss potential public comment policy.
Madam Chair, through
Yeah, that
you and I have had some discussion, about public comment and about, some of the best practices that are out there, particularly in light of the Southborough decision that came down concerning the regulation of public comment. I reached out to town council to see if I could get some guidance from them in the form of a model policy that is intended to be a start of a discussion. I know the agenda says votes may be taken. That's to provide the board the ability to proceed if it was ready to, but we're really, I think, expecting to start that conversation here with a template that's there. This would be a policy that would apply as proposed to other boards and committees with the exception of the school committee here in municipal government. More time and place regulating statement than content itself, consistent with the decision. And I don't want to put Mrs. Manupelli on the spot, but I'm sure she has quite a perspective on it from her role. We do not have a policy right now in place. It has worked well, and chairs have been able to manage it over the years. But something that come up is, do we want to seek to put a policy in place? I gave the select board a draft of a policy from KP Law, but I also gave you the school committee's policy as well, just so you could have that as a reference point, as well as an advisory that was pretty widely distributed by KP Law, just to start the conversation with the board. So.
All right, so does anybody have any input they want to give? Yes, Mr. Studo.
I think it's good to have, just because eventually the trust that it will just work can break down. And then as we've seen from, and I'm not a lawyer, but what I read is that, like most things in life, even in my sector, you get yourself in trouble when you don't have a written policy. When you have a written policy, you can refer to it, and it solves a lot of issues. Also, I feel that there have been a lot of meetings where not everyone got to participate because there was a lot of redundancy, and there would be 6 minutes of the same thing by 4 people, and then one thing leads to another, and then, the number one complaint I always get is that I was there to speak, but it got to be 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it just wasn't an option for me again. And I think something like this, at least, if it's the pleasure of the chair, at least you can point and say, well, let's wrap this up. But we have something we can go to if anybody ever questions it. It's written, everyone knows in advance. It's not, oh, well, I came in thinking I was going to get all the time I want to know. We have a policy, we adopted it, so those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mrs. Manupelli.
I think it's very well written, but I'm not a fan of the restricted time frame in it. I think because we are a town and we have public comment built in, the law built in, it's at the discretion of the chair. The chair can manage it. The chair could, if there's 35 people that show up to talk about an issue, give every person an opportunity to talk and manage that. Or if there's 100 people that show up, the chair could manage that, by there's 100 people here, everyone can have a minute to talk or 2 minutes to talk, etc. And we've seen big crowds come to the meetings, and most of the people have, you know, some people like to talk a lot longer than other people. Some people don't want to repeat things, they just want to stand up and say it was already said and I support this position. I just feel like putting a limitation on that, to me, is kind of runs contrary to being a town and letting people come to these meetings to be heard. But I think it's well written, so I don't want to diminish the effort. But I also think that the situation that we had during that meeting at the distance learning lab, we had someone that was, you know, saying racial slurs. So we had to adjourn. We had to call the meeting to adjourn. And I understand people who were, you know, watching that were very upset that we had to adjourn. But it's almost like we're not even addressing that in the policy. To me, that's also free speech, and just someone can get up and say whatever they want. The case, they can swear, you know, as what happened with the case. And we have to sit and let that person assert their First Amendment right to say whatever they want. But, you know, we could have run into a problem by adjourning that meeting where we had to correct the Zoom bomber who wanted to say, you know, racial things during the meeting, even though it wasn't during public comment. I just feel like it's well written, but again, limiting people's opportunity to come and express their position here, I think, should be up to the chair. And that should be, you know, circumstance dependent, not what the person has to say, but if we need to limit it in time, it should be at that moment in time, not just kind of randomly saying everybody only has 3 minutes to speak and that's it. You know, we sit up here and talk for hours and hours, so we should let citizens be able to come and address us too. That's just my 1 out of 5 opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Wallner?
I'm mixed. I see both of the points. I actually really do. I think it's unfortunate that we have to go to a 3-minute restriction, because I really do sometimes want to hear from people. But you have to be, you can't give somebody 5 minutes and then have someone else only get a minute, you know, and cut them off. So it's a real compromise between the two. So I don't know if we even have a choice. I think it's, what I'm hearing from other towns is they're just doing the 3-minute rule and calling it a day. It's easy to implement. It's consistent. You won't be facing any kind of legal jeopardy, I guess. But I, like you, I would prefer that you be able to manage it. And, you know, people who have something to offer, I'd like to hear more than just 3 minutes. They may have a lot more to say, and they want to ask some questions, you know, that they may not be able to offer. So I'm mixed between the two. I'm sorry to say.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I'm always love to hear people's opinions on things, whether favorable or unfavorable. But it can be abused too. There's no doubt about it. So traditionally, we've been able to manage it through the chair, and it's difficult. But because of these litigious times that we're living in, you have to put some sort of restrictions, keeping in mind that our policies and procedures are just guidance.
Right.
It's not law. It's nothing that's binding. The board can waive the policy at any particular time. If the subject matter comes up where it's of interest to the majority of the board, we can allow more time for it if we think it's warranted. But generally speaking, you'd want to, it's just like under all the new business in our policies, you say, if it's going to take you more than 5 minutes under all new business, it's going to move on to the future agenda item, you know, rather than take care of it right then and there. You can move it to the next agenda. And we can do the same thing with public comment. If someone brings up a good point, there's something we need to address, you know, we take it, put it on the agenda for the next meeting. But again, I think we need some flexibility, and I believe our ability to waive policy gives us that. So we're putting the restrictions in place now to protect ourselves because of the litigious society we live in. It safeguards the board and the town from potential litigation, but it doesn't limit us to allow people to speak.
Mr. Stovall?
And I'll add that I think I like the way the school committee ones, that at the discretion of the chair, it can be extended, but also I like to say that the biggest form of, you can call it closest to democracy, even bigger than here, is town meeting. And I've been involved in a bunch where, if you get long-winded, you get cut off. And I know that there's different rules, but again, this is already in place at town meeting, like this policy, meaning that you can't, even us, if I want to speak, it is, you a moderator, you've been involved in more, but if I want to speak for 15 minutes, I have to ask for a vote of a leave of the meeting. So meaning that this is not new. Like, we already restrict, it just we don't do it at the select board level. I'm saying in town meeting where literally we come and say, come here and you're allowed to present questions and talk even more than public comment. The moderator is, from what I've seen, I haven't seen anyone go over 5 minutes unless it was predetermined. So unless I'm missing something. So I just want to add that it's not about restricting, it's about at least having a written guideline. I am a believer in written guidelines because if something ever happens, it's not arbitrary. That is when the problem becomes. How did you decide that person got 2, but you let that person go 8? Do you have something in writing? And again, I feel like something in writing, at least we can defend a position if something ever came up. So that's why I just don't want them to think I'm about restricting speech.
No, Madam Chair, I'm not, but town meeting is quite a different process where we're only talking about warrant articles. So even though it seems like it's bleeding into a lot of speakers where they want to come and attack different, members that are volunteering there, that's a different forum where we're only supposed to be addressing warrant articles as the business before the town on the floor. So I can understand it's bleeding its way in, like this case, but it's quite a different forum. And the whole case was about the speaker coming up and criticizing the board and during the regular meeting. That the moderator wouldn't allow that or shouldn't allow that because we're really there to direct the comments towards the warrant article. And, it might just get by the moderator to allow, back and forth insulting. It shouldn't get by the moderator at a town meeting floor because that's really improper. It's not conducting the business of the town meeting. But sometimes it happens here where someone is very, very angry and you can't cut them off when they want to present here in this forum. And we have heard people that are very angry about topics or angry at us, directing the anger at us. And that's a different thing that's why I don't think it's fair because we've had people that write out their comments. Mm-hmm. They're more comfortable reading their comments out, and sometimes that takes someone 10 minutes to get through. Sometimes it's repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating, but it's not fair to say, you have to cut yourself off in 3 minutes when that person really wants to read it, and it doesn't have to be really directly related to what we're talking about here. They want to bring something to our attention. That happens a lot. And like Mr. O'Leary said, and we hear this issue, the last one I can think of was a gentleman that brought the revaluation of the floodland to our attention. He wrote his comments out so we'd be aware of it so that we could, make sure that there were public service announcements about what they're doing with the flood maps. So it's a lot of opportunity that may not be directly related. So town meeting is a different forum. It shouldn't, like I said, and I'm repeating myself, it shouldn't bleed into people's comments, you're a dope, you're not doing anything for so-and-so, what are you doing? That should not bleed into it if the moderator's doing the moderator's job, because that's not directly related to the articles. Here, they could do that. People could do that. Luckily, we don't typically receive that kind of commentary. We receive commentary where people have thought out what they want to say to us and they want to try to make a specific point about something to us. But in that case, that wasn't the case. The person was just mad at the board, and the board didn't want to hear it, and shut them off. That's why the case came down the way it did. So I know what you're saying, and I agree. And like Mr. Wallner, I could see the both sides to it. I just can't see the limitation on it. Let the chair decide that at that moment. You know, if there's 100 people, yes, to get to the rest of the business, you might need to put a limitation on it. But people police themselves here. You know, they'll say, well, he already said what I wanted to say, but I'm in support, you know? I don't know. That's just my thought on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would say that I see both sides also. I understand what you're saying, Mrs. Manupelli, and I agree with that. But I also understand the other board members' concerns about the times we live in, and, you know, somebody deciding that you made a decision that they don't like and they go to, you know, court with it. So to be able to have something to back us up. I like the school committee, you know, they're 3-minute, but at the chair's discretion. So, you know, you have a big crowd, you can go by that. Listen, there's a big crowd, you know, we're going to have to limit this to 3 minutes, and you have that to back you up. If there's not a big crowd and somebody wants to, you know, you could make it very clear to people when they're coming up, you know, we have a 3-minute, are you going to need more time than that? You know, and then you could, at your discretion, say, you know, how much time would you need? But at least you know, like Mr. Studo's point, there's something to back you up if you do need to limit it. I guess that would depend on who the chair is at the time and you know, how they handle that.
And whose comments are going to be heard.
Yeah, and you know, that could be the problem with that. But just seeing that somebody did go ahead and go to, you know, the legislature and do that to a board, you know, makes you think that maybe we do need to have something to back us up, you know. So, Mr. O'Leary?
I was just looking, but I thought we had a policy on public comment, but I don't see it. You know,
Yeah, I didn't see it.
We used to have, public comment was allowed. Again, chair sets the agenda, was put on the agenda. At one point, it was once a month, we had public comment. You know, the board had once a month and allow people to come in and state their case or hear their grievances or send their accolades and congratulations to us, whatever it is. We used to do it once a month, then it became every meeting, and then it was, you know, very sporadic depending upon the chair and what was being done. But I don't see it here. I don't know where it went. And maybe if we can find the old policies when it was implemented, when it was taken out.
Yeah.
Because it used to be there. We used to have it.
And in this decision, it does say that we don't have to allow public comment. We do that at our discretion. So, you know, just the fact that we do have public comment every meeting, you know, is a bonus for people. I mean, I agree. I think people should be able to come here and have their public comment, but we don't have to allow it.
No, we're not required to.
Having something in writing, having a policy that there is a limit, and we could even put on our agenda, on the public comment, 3-minute public comment at the chair's discretion so that people are aware of that before they come in. You know, and could maybe say, mine is more than 3 minutes, you know? I don't know.
But I'd also just like to go back to comment about town meeting. Town meeting, to Mrs. Manupelli's point, is very different animal than a public board meeting.
Right.
Again, we're limited as to what's on the warrant. That's the discussion. That's the notification to the public as to what's going to be discussed, no more, no less. And, you know, what was attempted to be done at our last town meeting was fully out of order.
Absolutely, yes.
So, you know, the moderator was correct in saying, what do you want to talk about? That's not on the agenda. It's not on the warrant. We can't discuss it.
Right.
You know, because proper notification has to be done to the town for town meeting, and there's no room for discussion on that.
Right.
So it's very different. Whereas our agenda, if you have public comment, that's wide open.
You could sit here for your 3 minutes and tell us all we're jerks, and that's what you want to do for your 3 minutes, you can do that. And I'm fine with that, but I think, to Mr. Studo's point, I think there should be something that we can fall back on. If, after 3 minutes of them calling us a jerk, we could say, okay, it's been 3 minutes, and they can't come back at us.
And also, when I reference a town meeting, I understand that you can only speak to it, but I'm saying that even if you're following the rules, you can't get too long-winded. And what I'm saying is that well, you can attempt it. You can attempt it, though. But I'm saying unless you're presenting the warrant article, where you're given, if you're a citizen, you're given the specialty time, I think, unless town meeting votes it away, which that's also happened. It's about the timing that it becomes, again, it's arbitrary, and I understand now what the chair can do of committees, but before I got involved, I didn't understand it, and a lot don't, and a lot are not going to listen. And if they don't see it written somewhere, it's going to be like, well, Chair Gonzalez, last week, you let somebody for 20 minutes talk about the way they like their eggs. How come I can't do it? And now it becomes that. And I can see it happening, where it's like, I was told that somebody got to ramble on for 15 minutes and no one stopped them. Why are you stopping me? And if we have a policy in place, somebody can say, well,
It was at the chair.
because of the circumstances of that meeting, I allowed the 15, and it's written here that this is what we're doing, and everybody knew about it. So again, I understand, and we let everyone speak, and no one's abused it to a point. Most people have not, but I do think that, again, this is more of not the change, how we've done it, but more of, it's eventually going to happen, I can almost guarantee, that someone's going to say, I've been watching people say whatever they want, and I'm not getting to say whatever I want. And then it can become this big thing where all of a sudden now we're on the defensive where, well, how has public comment gone the last 50 meetings? Let's do some research. Let's spend some taxpayer money, and next thing you know, we're going to have executive sessions about town meeting when Mr. O'Leary first got on the board, where we're going to have to go get the records in that secret room in the library. So again, that's my only fear. That's my fear.
Yeah, I mean, we're being told on this decision that we cannot control what somebody is saying, but we can control the time and the place. So I would feel that we should, I mean, that's a decision that's been made. And that decision got made because they didn't have a policy. Mr. Wallner?
But they did have a policy, it's just the policy was thrown out the window, because the policy didn't allow people to speak their mind. It infringed on their First Amendment right to speak freely, and it didn't meet the decorum that the policy of the board required. So they did have a policy in place, it was just thrown out the window.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just ask, this is new, right, Michael, this is new, and dust is still settling on this, right? I mean, we're not at a point of implementing this yet. We're at a point of understanding it and thinking about it further. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've got an advisory from town council that says, be aware that this decision's out there. I think that, the ramifications of the decision are pretty known at this point, and I think the intention of putting it on the agenda tonight was to say, okay, well, we don't think we have a policy that addresses this. How do we want to proceed?
Yeah.
So,
want
does the board need to take a vote this evening? No. And was that the intent? No. Certainly, I think looking to start with some feedback. And I think, admittedly, that I asked town council if there was a model policy. What I got back from them was a policy written from North Reading. You saw the way that they actually incorporated the town name into it. But town council Darren, did say to me, hey, this is written pretty narrowly. There are other communities that have written very broadly in terms of what it allows for. So, this type of feedback, I think, conveyed to them may cause this policy to maybe look more palatable to us as a whole. Again, not tonight, but at a future meeting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if we're on the spectrum, it doesn't sound like we want to be uber conservative, but a little bit more liberal, but still be consistent.
I think that's what I'm hearing. I think that consistency, but,
Kind of finding it in between.
And I we've had this through you, Madam Chair, we've had this conversation about other matters of policy, with the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. They wanted us to produce a policy of how we issue punishment. And we said, we don't have a policy, we have a practice, and we've stuck with it. We actually prevailed in that case with that argument, believe it or not. So, I mean, there is a tradition of, hey, we're not looking to over-regulate ourselves here. But we want to make sure we're sort of checking that box that says we do have a policy. So I think that this is helpful for us to try to adjust this with Darren and bring something back, to maybe get closer. It might not be perfect, but it'll maybe get us closer.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything for Mr. Gilberto to bring back?
Just maybe one thing, Madam Chair, some of the conduct that's considered disruptive would probably eliminate, for example, going back to that comment about the flood maps. It isn't really something that we regulate or could legislate, but I don't necessarily think that would be disruptive just because it's not within our jurisdiction to address it. So some of those aspects of it to me are too broad. Just, again, I'm 1 out of 5, but some of those aspects of it could be maybe harnessed a bit. So it gives us the opportunity to hear from people that may have something that's not necessarily, on our agenda.
Yeah, that struck me as well, Madam Chair. It's kind of narrow.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I don't think anyone.
I agree.
I don't think any of the 5 of you are looking to say to somebody who's on the other side, no, we don't want to hear it. It's not our jurisdiction. It's never been the board's response.
Right.
So again, just to be clear, for the public as well, this came back as sort of written narrowly by town council so that it could be discussed in this fashion.
And I guess if it's a board vote to suspend the policy to do something different, is that what that would look like? We have a policy in place, or is subject to the chair, which is how the law is right now. How does that operate for us? If the board would actively take a vote to suspend its public comment policy to maybe allow for a longer period of time or something. And then my final question for council would be the addressing of, slurs or, that kind of language, which, we don't necessarily have an issue like that, but what is how to address that? Is that disruptive conduct? Could that be disruptive conduct? Or is that falling under the free speech umbrella that someone can just come up here and do things like that? I'm just thinking of that as a primary example because we went through that at that distance learning lab meeting, even though it wasn't a public comment, it was a Zoom bomb. So would we run afoul of our own policy by not letting someone stand up there and, make comments like that? How do we put that in there? Because I think that could fall under the disruptive umbrella. But I'm not sure, based on the way the case is being interpreted, that would be considered.
So let's just consider one thing. Let's imagine someone gets their 3 minutes. In general, when people make public comment, we don't necessarily comment or engage them after they've made their comment.
Right.
It's at our discretion not to do that. So if we had a time limit for introducing a topic, I would certainly like the option to be able to engage with someone to explore more if we so chose to. So if someone came in with inflammatory whatever, they got their 3 minutes, they're done, and that's it. But if someone comes in with, public interest like topic that we want to explore more, I sure would like to have the option to be able to engage and ask for more information from them.
Well, as Mr. O'Leary suggested, you could then ask to have it put as an agenda item on another meeting.
Okay, yeah,
If
but
it was
even then,
something that you
even
wanted to explore
Yeah,
more.
but in between that, just to learn more about what they were saying before you add it to an agenda, it would be nice to have that discretion to be able to have a little back and forth.
Yeah, but I feel like this makeup of the board, we've freely, we hear Ms. Mullen a lot, we freely hear Ms. Hurley, we freely hear from people that are sitting here with us. And that should be the way the board operates.
Yeah.
If there's something coming up and people are here for the duration, they should be able to participate.
Right. I just mean during
Without a
public comment.
policy saying, oh, you can't. or-
I just mean during public comment
No, I
specifically, that
understand,
section,
but,
because you
yeah.
don't have to, we don't have to say anything.
I don't like the rules. Just let them, just let
I'd rather have
people
the
speak.
sentence.
But okay, I understand, and I'm sorry to prolong the discussion on it.
No, that's-
Thank you for the opportunity.
We have time. Everybody can,
All right, is everybody comfortable with what we've given for feedback?
I think so. Yeah.
So Mr. Gilberto, maybe you can come back with something and see if we're more palatable to it?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. And now it is time for public comment.
Good luck.
Good luck. yeah.
And I'm guessing the two young ladies in the audience are waiting for that moment.
I'm just listening.
Mrs. Mullen, please.
The funny part is, I really hate that I followed after this other one. I feel like I could be the elephant in the room. But I just didn't want to go home. We had a meeting tonight, so we came here to listen, get caught up on the sewage thing, which is good. So thank you. I just happen to have a couple of quick comments to suggest, because we were talking about capital items tonight in our meetings. Is there something that we can do to put in this room to make it that you can hear better, especially, I hate to say, coming into possibly, you know, we don't have, like last time, we had to do a lot more Zoom meetings because of the schools and everything else coming up. But I was told that we don't speak into the microphones because the way the room's kind of bugged to try to get ready for Zoom meetings. Is it extra money that we can put into this room so that on the Zoom meetings you can hear better? Because even when we're in the room, and you know that even being in the selectmen's room, you can't hear anybody from a certain time. We can't hear a lot when we're in this room, but you can't hear at home on Zoom. So if the room needs another $50,000 worth of whatever they need, no, but I mean, I'm serious, especially now with more people, because Zoom is available now, more people are looking at it. So I'm just thinking capital-wise, if we need to put money into this room, it's important that people do hear what we're talking about. There are a lot of important things coming up. So it's just a suggestion. I'd be willing to pay more to hear things.
It is a complaint we hear quite often.
That's all. And, you know, so I'll do this quick in case you ever did a 3-minute one. If we can make people speak up with microphones, but it doesn't matter because you can't use the microphone if the room's not prepared for it. So if we can prepare the room, everybody who speaks in this room should have to speak in front of a microphone so that you can hear them. And can we move public comment early? I love the idea you move the board member reports early, because I think that's great. Most people probably don't watch this until 11 or 12 o'clock. You know, so I like the idea that the board members is early. Could you do public meeting? And you have a right to, I know, I'm long-winded, you have a right to shut us off anytime you want. So
I would never shut you off.
no, you can, that's okay. And,
When your friend's timing you, I'm just...
no, my friend is the wrong thing, and I heard tonight that they congratulate Mr. O'Leary.
Yes.
I want to absolutely congratulate you also for your years of service, and thank you very, very much for that. And it's been a hard month this month, losing, like you said, just when I walked in, Gene Jones, because that makes you think of Mr. Jones and how hard it was to lose him, Brad, Dick Spindler, this Pat Romeo, and Lyman Fancy, over 200 years of 4 people. And to be honest with you, when I started, those were people that you knew in town, and they approached you at different times and said, hey, why don't you join? So if there is anybody still listening, losing out of respect for the 4 people that we, just those 4 that we lost this month, if new people could join the associate members. And one of the things I was thinking you were talking about before I walked into this part before, is it something you would want? I would prefer, to be honest with you, to call and select them, like you said before, I'll call you, and some things. Would you rather people call somebody and ask you to bring it up? And then it's only 2 minutes and you don't even have to respond to it. If I call one of you and said, hey, by the way, I would rather, if you make sure people use the mics and do that, and if you're going to say, hey, when you think of it, I'll bring it up at the very point, you're bringing it up. Under 10 things you're bringing up, it doesn't have to be a comment. I don't want you to say, hey, thanks for coming tonight, or any of that stuff. I'd rather call one of you. So it puts it on the selectmen. Out of 5 of you, you want to start hearing from more people. But that might be something, I'd always rather have somebody at our meetings call us before that they want to talk about it, instead of saying, hey, come to the meeting and stand here. So it's just a suggestion. And thank you all very much for what you all do.
And thank you.
And, and if anybody swears or does anything like that, I'm not saying I haven't been guilty. Shut us off. Thank you.
We can't, you're welcome to swear. We're not, but you are. We have Robert's.
This is how I did tonight.
Uncharacteristic. Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
also say thank you also for, I wasn't able to attend the town meeting, but thank you also for standing up in that article that was put forward for Officer Romeo. I think that really just kind of finished that topic and got that over the finish line. And it was really well said remarks.
Absolutely. All right, do we have any public comments on Zoom?
I'm not seeing any.
All right, then we'll move on. Set and confirm upcoming board meeting schedule. Ew, what is that bug on my table?
The bug on your table?
There's a beetle.
There's a what?
It's not from Paris.
What? What are you looking at? Use your napkin.
What we don't want.
I don't.
Where?
Right there.
Did we recess for that?
What was the?
You didn't score
that, did you?
He did.
You didn't squash that.
The giant
Hammer.
I can't believe you.
I would have had to bring it
We're about to lose the
outside.
chair. We're about to lose the chair for the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Student.
My hero.
Big night. Kill the beetle.
Okay, so we are,
Moving on.
do we already have these dates in
Madam Chair,
calendar?
through you, we do, but I suspect, I don't think Mr. Sudo was here the night we set those dates.
Oh, so we're just
I more wanted
confirming?
to confirm them, and I
Okay.
know we had a conversation about potentially setting up a town meeting date for strategic planning, and then I think
Yes.
we determined, well, let's see where it's going to go with the wastewater project. I'm not saying that we need to set a meeting. We could opt to say we're going to wait until after the special town meeting and have it then. But if the board didn't want to do that and wanted to have it sooner, then this would be a time to start looking at a date. I recognize we're heading into the holiday season. It's going to be difficult to find a date. But first, just want to confirm that those 4 meeting dates are on everybody's radar.
Which ones?
November 6th and November 20th.
So we're not doing the 30th.
I did not have a meeting scheduled for the
Okay, so
30th.
November 6th.
20th, and I have December 4th.
Yep,
Yeah.
December
December
4th and
18th.
December 18th. That's,
So
they're both-
November 6th and the 20th.
Yes.
And the special town meeting is set for when?
We talked
We
about
don't
having
have
a
an
meeting
actual date.
in the early to mid-spring. We did not pick a date,
But
but
it's
we're
not-
thinking March, April. I will
So,
note, I
Oh,
think,
wait, I did have that date.
are you good with those dates?
Yeah, the 6th, the 20th, and the 4th, right?
Yeah, and the 18th.
4th and May 18th.
Yes.
Madam Chair, we had talked about having classification on November 20th, but I've spoken with the finance director and the chief assessor, and they're actually asking if we can consider having it on November 6th, which is a little bit earlier than we normally have it, but they feel that they'll be ready to proceed at that point. So that will give us a greater likelihood of a tax rate being approved in time and getting the
Okay,
bills out.
great.
So
Okay.
if that's okay, we'll plan for that November 6th, the next meeting.
And then strategic meeting planning. I think it would be best to just wait until after the special town meeting. How do you feel?
That's not, it's gonna be for a while, though.
Yeah, I think it should be sooner, and I think we should have a joint meeting with the planning commission before we have a strategic plan.
That's in the works,
I
right?
mean,
I'm
I think
waiting,
we need to-
actually, I'm sorry, but have we heard back from the town planner? Because she was going to talk about dates for that.
I have to check with her. I haven't spoken with her about it.
Because it was kind of in there,
You're talking about accessory dwelling unit?
yes. It was kind of in, the ball was in their court right now to come up with some dates.
Well, no, what we said was that Danielle and I would work together to come up with a policy before we asked the two boards to come together and attempt to bring us together.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And then, so I talked to Danielle about that, but she needs to hear from Michael and Warren that it's okay.
When was that discussed?
The last,
I don't even remember that conversation.
Yeah, 'cause I said
The
we
last
set
I
dates.
thought we were just going to get some dates that we could all agree on to get this workshop.
but in the meantime, Rich was going to work with Danielle to come up with a draft policy for us to collaborate on. That's all, you know, let's brainstorm about, which would give us maybe some common ground, as opposed
That's the
to,
goal.
You mean,
we think you should, and you decide you didn't. You know?
Is this affordable housing unit?
no, yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Kate?
ADUs, additional dwelling
Yeah.
units, additional dwelling, sorry.
Well, I mean, we're looking at the calendar for this, and we'll know that it'll work. But, so we,
Warren's not aware, the chair's not aware that we are planning to have a combined meeting. I just talked to him.
Of course he is. I talked to him on the telephone. Him and I
talked to him.
are the ones who decided
Well,
on
I talked to him
that.
at town meeting, he said he didn't know we were planning to have a combined meeting. Just telling you
It
what
was
he said.
his idea to do the workshop instead of coming to a meeting. That was his idea. So how could he say he doesn't know that?
That's what he told me. Anyways, a little bit of confusion. I think the starting place is Danielle and I work on trying to come up with common ground between the two.
So we're waiting on that?
Well, but I need to have permission to work with her. And Danielle, when I talked to her informally, she was happy to do it.
I think we may need to just get back to Mr. Pearson, is what it sounds like. So,
But and again, a workshop is a good idea. You know, it'll have to be posted and
Yeah.
and all the rest, but it doesn't necessarily require public input. It's just the two boards going to get a brainstorm
Yes,
about
absolutely.
specific issues.
That's what we decided on. And I mean, I don't feel like we should put it off and do a draft. I mean, they have what they worked on. They have a policy. Like, let's just talk about that.
Let's remind ourselves, they voted it out of committee, so they don't have a policy.
Well, they have a policy that they voted against. And that's the whole point of this workshop is, okay, what was it in that policy that you didn't, like, I don't understand why you have to have a separate meeting with Danielle when we can just have this workshop, this is the policy they had, this is why they voted against it, maybe this is what we could do to change it. That's the whole point of the workshop. I think that's an extra step we're waiting on that we don't need.
I wouldn't suggest that. I think you're going to end up just in an argument and not get anything done. So what happened was the original policy.
Well,
just a
sometimes you're
little-
going to just have to hear what you don't want to hear, just like the light at Central Street
can I
that I
just tell you the history?
didn't
The
like,
history
but that
is-
didn't go through. You can't have everything.
My understanding is, if I can just explain, my understanding is that the original policy started with the Massachusetts accessory dwelling unit policy. And then over time, they went more and more restrictive and more conservative until it gets to where it is now as uber restrictive, uber there's just, it's as conservative as it possibly could be. If you study accessory dwelling units in Massachusetts, there's been 90 communities that have done that. Those that have moved their accessory dwelling unit policy from the Massachusetts to the most conservative, those 30 communities have had failure in having anybody even taken up an accessory dwelling unit because it's so onerous. They don't even use it. So it hasn't worked. So you need to kind of go back to what the Mass standard is and AARP standard, which is very well documented. And then you find a middle ground that actually would be adopted by people and would meet what you're looking for. But probably the state one is just they're looking for housing everywhere they can. It's super liberal. So you want to find something in between. If we just look at what they had as their last step, I wouldn't even recommend doing it because it's so restrictive. It'd be a waste of time because no one could do. The examples from the other communities are nobody does something that's restrictive. You have to find something in between. So my goal was to meet with Danielle. She has a good background of what it is. She knows what's happened over the evolution. She also feels like we can find a more middle ground. And that's what we would work off of, is the middle ground. Because right now, the CPC, by 3-2 majority, killed it in committee. So what they ended up with, they killed, which was super conservative. And then Jerry Noel also has some opinion about as well, which I want to bring into discussion. So we can actually make some progress on this and not just be doing this. There's no reason to be doing that if we can do some pre-work ahead of time. And that's what we talked about 2-3 meetings ago. And that's what I would suggest to be a productive meeting.
So then I guess we're waiting on you.
But I'm ready to go, but I have to have Danielle's permission to be able to.
Danielle's ready to go.
Danielle
Is ready to go. She just needs permission from her chair and the.
That is correct. That is correct. She's more than willing to do it. She just needs to get the okay that she can do it.
Mr. Studo.
So I just have an observation. This is no opinion on the ADU, but here's how I see it. I don't see how Ms. McKnight's going to do this 3-2. If you read the charter of the CPC, that is ill-advised for a town planner to do that. I don't think Mr. Pierce, based on my just working with him, I don't think if it's 3-2 against, he's going to authorize Danielle to do this. And also, on the other thing, again, this is an observation, Mr. Walner, but it's the same that this body here votes something down, and then we find out that Mr. Gilberto is negotiating with someone where it's like, we already killed this, Mr. Gilberto, not sure what you're doing, and I don't care how much the CPC member on the other side wants it. So I'm just saying that it's one of those, like, you know, what's that saying? You get people better with honey than vinegar. Yeah. I think it's going to alienate them more. I really do. And I think that the second that Ms. McKnight sniffs that, it's going to be ghost on this. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, think about it, right? She has to go into that meeting. Imagine if you have a majority against the idea and they find out that you went to another board to try to override it. It's going to be, we're not even going to get this workshop. I don't think they'll agree to it. I think they'll be that pissed off. And that's my fear, that this thing blows up in our face.
Thank you, Mr. Studo, and I appreciate that.
But this is not about the ADU, Chair Gonzalez. I want to make it very clear.
It's the principle of it.
I'm not giving an opinion on this ADU. I'm just saying that I just think I just don't see how the mechanics are going to work, because she needs to answer to her board. And she's going to put herself in a tight spot. And then, I mean, because at that point, it's going to look like the CPC is just a proxy for us. If you can go in there and pull that off, it's just going to be like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter what the CPC does, because when the select board disagrees, we're just going to run you over anyways.
So if I could add to that, I know that the CPC, they worked on this for 2 years. They came to this decision, and then it was like they were being called into the principal. Well, you're going to have to come before us and explain to us why you came to that decision. Their own elected board, that they weren't comfortable with that feeling. So that's where we came to the decision of, let's just get a workshop together, exchange our ideas, understand how you came to where you came at, but you're not answering to us. So, I mean, I just feel like we should leave it as it is. an agreement was made by the chair with me, the chair of this board, to have a workshop, to have a discussion. That doesn't mean that anything could change, but it would be an exchange of ideas, and maybe this board would understand better what made them come to that decision. Who knows? Maybe some talking by Mr. O'Leary would make them think differently about something, or even yourself. That's what the workshop is. Maybe something will change, maybe it won't, but at least we would all understand each other and have said what we needed to say. And I think that it should just be left at that.
Maybe we need town meeting rules here where we have to stick to the agenda too.
Mrs. Rainey Kelly.
And I appreciate that you would invest that extra time, but I would like the benefit of hearing that during the workshop. Hearing that, input that Danielle has during the workshop directly. I'm not saying you would not convey it in the correct way or what have you.
I'm not saying we would do
Yeah.
it, it would be a joint effort. And it would be,
I feel like it
to
would-
go through the history. I mean, just to be clear, it'd be a
I
joint
think
effort.
it would be good for us in the workshop to have that, if she's willing to participate in the workshop. I think that input would be helpful to all of us, and hearing from her.
I'm not trying to stop her from giving history or to explain what happened. What I'm trying to do is...
Oh, no,
come up
I'm not
with-
saying that you
What I'm
are.
trying to do is look at all the different iterations of policies they have and find a more in-between position that could be a starting point for people to discuss in a realistic manner, so it's productive. I'm not saying to squash what anybody has to say or anything else like that. I'm just saying I think we can find a model that would be palatable to people if we have a chance to discuss it out more than we've had before. And by the way, the CPC, before the election, was prepared to bring it to October meeting. That policy, they were prepared to bring it to October meeting that we just had before there was the election. And it was a change of heart after the election.
And that's what happens at elections.
It does, but I'm just saying, they were ready to go for it. It was ready to go for it.
But
So we're
it's
going to
not
schedule
now.
a strategic meeting?
Yeah, so
Is it put the planning board?
I would appreciate that we stay to the agreement that the two chairs came to have a workshop and talk about it then. And I think Mr. Studo has a good point. You're bringing the planner into a position that might get her board upset with her. I think it should just be left to the workshop. If you want to have the
That's kind of an
workshop.
interesting comment. I'm actually kind of wondering why our town planner even reports to the CPC. And my understanding is other towns, the town planner is oftentimes an independent person from the CPC. This is an unusual, we have kind of an unusual arrangement in our town. Town planners are usually independent in the same way that in a manufacturing facility, you don't have the quality manager reporting to manufacturing. That is not how it happens. They should be independent, and they should be doing things in a different way than we are right now.
Well, that would be the same
As a
difference
side-
between a
as a-
town manager and a town administrator, right?
No,
I mean, there's
it's not
different
even-
models.
Not even the same. Not even the same.
Yeah, I mean, a town administrator or town manager usually report to the select board. There are two unusual things about our charter, I'm sure Mr. O'Leary can tell you too. First, that our planning commission is elected. That doesn't always happen. It's not that common when you look around. And then secondly, that we have a planner that reports separately. But that was a separation that was put into the charter in 1970, and that's how it's set up.
Yeah, I actually kind of think it's a mistake for the reason I said
Before you, Mr. O'Leary.
you don't have a quality control person reporting to manufacturing.
But I think what we have here is a situation where the majority of this board seems to be embracing the concept of having an ADU bylaw to allow for these things to happen. And the planning commission, who generally would handle all the zoning suggested changes, making recommendations to town meeting and all the rest of it, bringing it forward, hasn't. And prior to the election, this board was on board with them going through all the motions and culling through all the policies across the state and come up with something that would be workable for the town of North Reading. Now, we can agree or disagree with whether or not what was going to be proposed would be something that would be workable, but at least it would be something other than what we have, which is nothing. But the board embraced ADUs, and then all of a sudden it didn't come forward. So I think we were kind of caught off guard and said, what's going on? And we still think it's important, and important enough to have a discussion with them and say, we want to move forward, and we want you to move forward, with a proposal, and let town meeting decide. But they're not even bringing it forward for consideration. I think that's where some of us are a little bit disturbed, So, again, whether it's going to be something that's workable, and I read some of the stuff that I gave you to look at, where some communities have things that are so restrictive, it's just not practical and it's not going to work. But they put them in place to say, oh, we allow these things, as opposed to something that's practical and works and gets utilized. And you can see the communities where it does work. So I think to Rich's point, it's like, we should have something to discuss with them as to, first of all, why didn't you bring something forward? What you were proposing seems overly restrictive and wouldn't have generated much interest anyway. And how do we get a policy in place, a zoning change in place, to really effectuate and bring about some needed accessory dwelling units, affordable, so people can age in place, because it makes so much sense and it's so intertwined with everything else that we're talking about from a strategic planning standpoint. We have an aging population and they're land-rich, cash-poor, and they're overhoused. So it isn't just we should allow for this. There's a whole host of things that need to be done and discussed. And the workshop is what should be done. But I think we should be somewhat united in the message that we're giving to them, which is we believe something needs to be put forward for consideration for the town to consider. And it needs to be a policy or zoning suggestion that's going to be workable and people are going to take advantage of and utilize. And why wouldn't you bring something forward? Now it's dead in the water. They're done with it. They shouldn't be done with it. And if they are done with it, let us know that you're done with it, and then we can decide collectively whether we want to move forward on our own.
And I respectfully disagree with that position. So,
But we're going to have the workshop to talk about.
that's what the workshop is supposed to be. So I think if we could just go forward and have the town planner and the chair give us some dates and move forward with that workshop.
But we're supposed to be considering this in case we present a zoning warrant article that incorporates that. So we would want to lock that in sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So it is somewhat on our strategic plan that we want to do these initiatives, so to help people age in place. So can we schedule that, ask for dates in February or ask for dates in, some specific time frame that gets us enough time that in case we put a warrant article on.
When I spoke with Warren, it was sooner than later. And that's why I was wondering. That's why I was wondering why it hadn't happened. And I must not have heard that part of the conversation that something was being planned between you and Danielle first. So, I just feel like we need to move this forward and get this workshop done.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, but can we ask for a date soon?
Yeah, sooner than later. That's what. So if you.
And they'd have their own meetings too. That's the other thing that.
Right, but now I'm finding out that was being held up because something else was being done between Mr. Wallner and Mrs. McKnight.
That wasn't going to delay anything other than to the extent that Danielle needed permission to work with Rich on it. It still didn't delay when the meeting was going to be. It's just that hasn't taken place. But if you want to skip that, let's just get this done.
Let's just get
the dates.
Yeah.
Schedule the workshop, and in the meantime, we can come up with our own proposals for their consideration too, as to what we think is needed and necessary and what's going to work.
Yeah.
Should we book strategic planning for, I don't know, when?
So we're talking two separate.
Yeah, we talk two separate
Two
things.
separate
We're talking
things.
about a workshop. I believe that.
I know you're talking about, I'm
I
talking
think
about more like,
Personally, I think the strategic planning should take place after we meet with the planning commission, because that may change our strategic plan.
I agree.
Okay.
Part of our strategic plan may be to move forward with an ADU bylaw proposal, absent the CPC's.
So let's wait on the strategic
Together
planning
with them.
date and work on the workshop date.
I don't mind chairing the food committee for strategic planning.
Oh, that's excellent. What about the workshop?
That's above my pay grade.
That could turn into a food fight.
So just those 4 meetings for select board for now?
Well, Mr. Prisco used to handle the
Yeah,
menu,
I
handle the
wasn't
menu for
here
our
for that.
strategic meeting when he was on the board. So if you want to take his place, that's fine.
I mean,
We were pretty
I don't
well,
have a
we were pretty well
restaurant,
fed.
but Just as good.
You have restaurant chefs.
Okay, so
All right, so Madam Chair, who are you going to assign the responsibility of getting the dates from the chair of the CPC and the planner to forward to you? You'll be the administrator?
I thought that
Okay.
the administrator would take care of that.
I can do that, that's fine.
Great. So we can move on to minutes.
So I'll repeat myself, Madam Chair. I move
Yeah.
to approve the regular session meeting minutes as written for the following date, July 17th, 2023.
Nope.
I think those are executive session. I think those motions might
Oh,
be.
I'm sorry, what am I doing? No, that's,
Just cross that off.
huh?
Is that the right motion, the wrong date?
This is July 17th.
July
Regular
17th.
session
It's
meeting.
the wrong dates.
Take that, take July 17th, scratch that off.
But that's not what's on the agenda.
Yeah,
Scratch
please.
17th off.
Okay, so that kills that one.
One less vote we have to take.
No, no. Madam Chair, I move to approve the regular session meeting minutes as written for the following date, August 7th, 2023.
I'll second that one again. That's the one you made before.
It isn't the one I did before.
Oh, is it?
I did July 1.
Okay, I'll second that one.
I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the regular session meeting minutes as written for the following date, September 6th, 2023.
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the regular session minutes as written for the following date, September 18th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the October town meeting regular session meeting minutes as written for the following date, October 2nd, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it.
And town administrators report.
I have no report this evening.
No report.
Move to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Wallner well, actually, it was a motion by Mrs. Minipelli and a second by Mr. Studo.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.